all. This is Dr. Mubin Sayed from Drbeen.com. Welcome to one more show. So the topic today is interesting. AstraZeneca, for the first time in 2 or 3 years of legal battles about their COVID vaccine and clotting, has admitted in their legal submissions to court that their vaccine, COVID vaccine, can cause clotting or these rare side effects. Why is this news? There are a couple of things in here that are news. Number one, this is the very first time ever in a legal document they have admitted that this can happen. Before that, they had simply been saying that we are not aware of any such thing. Second thing is that within that legal document, they still said the cause is unknown. While I'll show you today, I had to do some journalistic digging, and I'll show you that they were actually aware of the mechanism of clotting in December of 2021. And here in February 2024, they are still submitting to the court that the cause is unknown. So let's look at this together. So first, here are the references. This is Drbeen.com. If you would like to have access to more lectures, go to Drbeen.com and you can get access to amazing medical lectures. This is the write-up on telegraph.co.uk. AstraZeneca admits its COVID vaccine can cause rare side effects in court documents for the first time. Then this is December 2nd, 2021, where AstraZeneca actually knew the mechanism of the thrombosis, and then some more supporting documents. All of these are present. The links are present in the description. So with this, let's start with my drawings. So first of all, the Telegraph says AstraZeneca is the second largest publicly listed company in the UK with a market capitalization of more than 170 billion pounds. Its chief executive, Sir Pascal Soriot, is the highest paid boss among FTSE 100 companies with earnings close to 19 million pounds yearly. Now, the AstraZeneca admits its COVID vaccine can cause rare side effects in court documents for the first time. Pharmaceutical giant being sued in class action over claims its vaccine caused death and serious injuries in dozens of cases. So AstraZeneca has admitted for the first time in court document that its COVID vaccine can cause rare side effects in an apparent about turn that could pave the way for a multi-million pound legal payout. So I think all the legal cases that are going against the AstraZeneca at this time, it's about 100 million pounds that are being asked. So check this out. In one of the cases where there was there's a person, I believe Jamie Scott, who has sued AstraZeneca because he's almost become disabled after the vaccination. So AstraZeneca wrote this in a letter to the lawyer of Mr. Scott. AstraZeneca wrote, in a letter of response sent in May 2023, AstraZeneca told lawyers for Mr. Scott that we do not accept that TTS, so thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome, is caused by the vaccine at a generic level. So they were pushing back even in 2023 May that, hey, we do not know this. And I'll show you that they knew it in December of 2021. But in the legal document submitted to the High Court in February of 2024, AstraZeneca said it is admitted that the AstraZeneca vaccine can, in very rare cases, cause TTS, thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome. The causal mechanism is not known. This is actually something that is really interesting, that they are still saying the causal mechanism not known. Okay, so let's actually look at the causal mechanism that has been researched with the AstraZeneca scientists present in that research. So I'll show you the references later on, but here is the mechanism. When this vaccine is given, Remember, the AstraZeneca vaccine, Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, and the Johnson & Johnson vaccines are vector-based vaccines. That means that we have adenovirus, a chimpanzee adenovirus with the DNA for the spike protein for the SARS-CoV-2 present in it, and that is what causes the immune training. So when the vaccine is given into the muscle, the adenovirus that is injected has a lot of negative charge on it. This is an important part to keep in mind. There are lots of negative charges on the adenoviruses that are injected in the person as carriers of the vaccine DNA. So these are those negative charges. Now what happens is, in some people, the vaccine, instead of just going into the muscle, some of the vaccine or the adenovirus escapes into the blood circulation. So now we have negatively charged adenoviruses that are circulating in the blood circulation. What happens is, as these negatively charged adenoviruses are circulating within the blood circulation, we have other components of the blood that are also circulating in the blood circulation, and one important component is platelets. Platelets have platelet activating factor 4 that they release. This factor 4 over here, these orange dots, this factor 4 kind of is released in the platelets, it goes to the endothelium, and it prevents the heparin activation so that unnecessary clotting does not occur. However, this platelet activating factor 4 or this protein gets attracted to this virus, adenovirus, which is negatively charged, and this PAF4 and the virus, they start attracting and binding with each other. So now we have platelet factor 4 bound to a virus, and this will look suspicious to our immune system. Now the platelet factor 4 has now become antigenic. So what happens is, if you see here from the left side, these are the platelets with their factor 4. In the middle here, this is the adenovirus that we have injected for the vaccine. It is bound to the platelet factor 4. Then this complex of the platelet factor 4 and the adenovirus washes away into the lymphatic system, reaches the lymph node. Over there we have dendritic cells, macrophages. They interact with this, they phagocytose it, they eat it up, they break down these antigens, then they present those antigens to the T cells or adaptive arm. The T cell here is the naive T cell, and my apologies for the more rendered diagram here and less rendered over here because I had not yet drawn these. So anyways, this is T helper naive cell or TH0. When under the influence of the macrophages and in the presence of interleukin 4 and absence of interleukin 12, the T helper 0 would become T helper 2. T helper 2 cell then will cause the B cells to become activated and become active B cells or the plasma cells. These plasma cells would start making antibodies against this vector adenovirus bound with the platelet activating factor 4 or PFA4. So now this complex, the aggregated antigen, is against which the antibodies will be produced. So we all of a sudden have autoimmunity that has developed. These B cells or active B cells will become memory cells as well, and they'll continue to produce these antibodies for a long time. So here the B cells have now produced antibodies that are against this complex of adenovirus and the platelet factor 4. When this happens, these antibodies are now also circulating within the blood circulating system, and these have their receptors on the platelets. So on the platelets, there are receptors which we say Fc gamma 2 receptors, or fraction constant for IgG gamma receptor type 2. So essentially, in simple terms, these antibodies have their receptors on the platelets. Now remember that platelets are releasing the platelet factor 4, adenovirus is present in here as well, and when the antibodies would come into the mixture too, now we have a complete perfect storm to occur, and so the antibody would come in, bind with these complexes settle on the platelet surface, cause the platelet activation, platelet aggregation would start occurring, and all of a sudden we have clotting going on. That is thrombosis. And why do we have thrombocytopenia, or reduction in platelet count? Of course, the platelets are the raw material to make clots. As this autoimmune system start triggering the platelets to coalesce with each other, to aggregate with each other, to bind with each other, to make clots, the overall platelet count would start dropping because the raw material is consumed in making little clot as buildings. Of course, those clots would now cause issues. They can they can get stuck in blood vessels, and whatever organ or tissue in which blood vessel they are stuck, that would get ischemia and damage. On the other hand, the patient is also now going to become more prone to bleeding because the anti-clotting components, that is the platelets, are reduced in number. So paradoxically, the patient is getting the clots, plus the patient is also has bleeding disorders. So strokes, coronary disease, GIT issues, renal issues, these all can occur and more. So this is the mechanism. And if you said, well, Mubin just made up this mechanism, here is the study. 2 December 2021, scientists, so this is in the Cardiff University, UK, scientists may have solved an important part of the mystery of ultra-rare blood clots linked to adenovirus COVID-19 vaccines. And check this out, the participants in this study, scientists from Cardiff University, Arizona State University, worked with AstraZeneca to investigate vaccine-induced immune thrombotic thrombocytopenia. So also keep in mind this one term, VITT, because you would see that in the latest documentation, AstraZeneca still does not agree and acknowledge that this is a term, while they were part of the study in 2021 December. Also known as thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome, or TTS, a life-threatening condition seen in a very small number of people after receiving the Oxford AstraZeneca or Johnson & Johnson vaccines. Now remember, it is something to do with the adenovirus-based vector vaccine, nothing to do with the company itself. Their findings suggest it is the viral vector, in this case an adenovirus, used to shuttle the coronavirus genetic material into cells, and the way it binds to platelet factor 4 once injected, that could be the potential mechanism. In very rare cases, the scientists suggest the viral vector may enter the bloodstream and bind to PF4, where the immune system then views this complex as foreign. They believe this misplaced immunity could result in the release of antibodies against PF4, which bind to the activated platelets, causing them to cluster together and triggering blood clots in a very small number of people after the vaccine is administered. Once again, I would like you to look at the date here, 2nd December 2021. Then the team used a technology called cryo-EM to flash freeze the preparations. They were then able to look at atomic level at the structure of the outer protein cage of the virus, the viral capsid, that is the shell of the virus, and other critical proteins that allow entry of the virus into the cell. In particular, the team detailed the structure and receptor of ChAdOx1, which is adapted from chimpanzee adenovirus Y24, and how it interacts with PF4. They believe it is this specific interaction and how it is then presented to immune system that could prompt the body's own defense to view it as a foreign and release antibodies against this self-protein. Autoimmunity occurs. First author on the study, Dr. Alexander Baker, an honorary research fellow at Cardiff University, said, "We found that ChAdOx1 has a strong negative charge. This means that the viral vector can act like a magnet and attract proteins with the opposite positive charge, like PF4. And then they say, this is December 2021, they're saying modifying ChAdOx1 to reduce electronegativity may reduce the chance of causing thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome, said Dr. Baker. You may not have heard of these kind of modifications because these folks never cared to look at these problems and see how to fix them. While the solutions were presented, So going back to the Telegraph, going back to the latest reporting, TTS, which stands for thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome, causes people to have blood clots and low blood platelet count. 51 cases have been lodged in High Court with victims and grieving relatives seeking damages estimated to be worth up to 100 billion British pounds. AstraZeneca's admission, made in a legal defense to Mrs. Scott's High Court claim, follows intense legal wrangling. It could lead to a payouts of the drug if the drug firm accepts that the vaccine was a cause of serious illness and death in specific legal cases. The government has pledged to underwrite AstraZeneca's legal bills. Now, scientists first identified a link between the vaccine and a new illness called vaccine-induced immune thrombocytopenia and thrombosis as early as March 2021, shortly after the COVID-19 vaccine rollout began. And I actually remember doing a talk about this. The very first study that came was from Germany, and I talked about that. Lawyers for the claimants argue that VITT is a subset of TTS, although AstraZeneca does not appear to recognize the term. Neither are they recognizing the term, nor are they saying that we know the mechanism, while their own scientists were part of the studies in December 2021 to understand the mechanism. The government has indemnified AstraZeneca against any legal actions but has so far refused to intervene. The company is pointing out that product information relating to the vaccine was updated in April 2021 with the approval of the UK regulator to include the possibility that the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine is capable in very rare cases of being a trigger for TTS. So now they're saying, well, we always said that this was the case, that this could happen. Interestingly, they never said it in the court documents other than this February. Now, this was interesting for me that the World Health Organization jumped in as well to provide their 2 cents too. The World Health Organization has said the vaccine was safe and effective for all individuals aged 18 and above, and the adverse effects that has prompted the legal action was very rare. I do not know who invited WHO to come in and also have their voice in there, but they felt it necessary to come in and provide their message. In the months after the rollout, the potentially serious side effects of the jab was identified by scientists. It was then recommended that under 40s be offered an alternative jab because the risk of AstraZeneca vaccine outweighed the harm posed by COVID. The government runs its own vaccine compensation scheme, but alleged victims claim the one-off payment of £120,000 is inadequate. Figures obtained under a Freedom of Information request show that out of 163 payouts made by the government by February this year, at least 158 went to recipients of the AstraZeneca vaccine. So that is the discussion. This is the list of references, and what is interesting for me, once again, I'm just going to repeat this one part. What is interesting for me is, number one, they still claimed that we do not know the mechanism. And number two, they never in the legal system admitted that this could be happening, while other than the legal system, this was a known fact. And there are so many studies. If you just Google the adenovirus-based vaccine and blood clotting disorders, you will see tons of studies talking about the mechanisms and the solutions for that. So this is the discussion. Finally, they have admitted it. Now, will the UK government indemnify them, protect them, or will they become liable for compensations? We will find out, but at least they have admitted. And remember, this word admitted is being used by the media only after the vaccine giant itself used that word. So if I very quickly go back, I know you cannot see this one, but I'm going to go back to the original statement by AstraZeneca. In this statement, they said, it is admitted that the AstraZeneca vaccine can, in very rare cases, cause TTS. the causal mechanism is not known. This is why they do not want to say vaccine-induced thrombosis and thrombocytopenia, because that in its term has the word vaccine-induced, and they don't want to acknowledge that. Because of that, they're just simply saying it is TTS and we do not know why it happened. So anyways, that is a discussion. What do you think? Should the vaccine companies be on the hook for the compensations? I think that there should be a pool by all the vaccine companies to create a research system and look at those who may have vaccine side effects and help them. If the rarer they are, the better it is, because we can handle them and compensate them and take care of them more easily. But this should be done. With this, thank you very much, and I will talk to you later. Please like, subscribe, and share, and go to drbeen.com to get more lectures as well. Talk to you later. Bye for now.